Okay, let me try. All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to the live stream that we have. I just want to check the audios for a bit. Am I audible? I did. Is this fine? All right, perfect. Assalamu alaikum, guys. So, the last time that we had a class, we decided upon Zoom, but that was because a lot of kids could not really try logging in through the Zoom app, so we had to move to YouTube, which is easily available for a lot of kids. Just wanted to show you a few examiner scripts. But before I show you the examiner scripts, I just want to discuss with you that paper one is tomorrow, whether that's IG or whether that's GC. It's tomorrow and it's finally happening, and all of the effort that all of us have put in is, you know, is finally coming to a close. And I would honestly suggest that if there's any planning that you have done, that I will solve two past papers before I sleep, or three past papers before I sleep, or let me solve 2D question one more time, then I'm going to advise against it. Because at the end of the day, you have given it your all. As teachers, we have given it our all, and as students, you have given it your all. And now it's finally time to sit back and trust all of the effort that has gone into everything that you have been doing. I will be showing you examiner scripts, and trust me when I say this, these kids, the ones whose script I'm going to show you, because I won't be telling you who they are, but they were, they tried their best and they were amazing at English. And yet you can see the score that's in front of you, which is 37 out of 80, which you would be like, I could never end up with a score like that. And yet it happens. And do you want to know the interesting thing? I wanted to let you know that the threshold that we had, this is by the way May, June last year, the threshold that we had for paper one was actually 44 for an A. So this kid actually ended up getting a B with a couple of, actually a C, now that I think about it, with a couple of marks. So A was at a 44, and B was at a 39, and C was at a 34 onwards. So just by one mark, this child did not get a B in paper one. But then again, 37 marks isn't really a lot as well. But let's get on with it. Enough talking, more motivational talk at the end. For now, I want to show you the scripts for which I called you guys here. And let's begin. So a few things that I wanted to show you, just by the way, is this is the marking, so you can just take a look at this. And right, so this is, you can see it's from 0500 2, which is paper, let me just pick a smaller size. All right, so May, June 25, which is last year. This is a script that I will just be discussing a few questions just because I want to show you what the examiners are doing. Remember how I don't know if you guys have seen my videos. Those of you who have, you'll remember that this was actually a term that I described, sample delicacies. Now, sample were options and delicacies were generally not cuisines. Why am I saying this? Because a few kids wrote it down. I will be showing you 4 or 5 scripts, so we'll see how these things go. Delicacies was actually luxury food, you can say. So luxury food, unique food items, anything that's not really easily available. And yet take a look at what this child wrote down in pressure or in the exam. He wrote down food passionists or food lovers. By the way, wherever you see this option, it means that a mark has not been given by the examiner. A tick means a mark has been given, like this one right here. But a sign like this means that a mark has not been given. So he wasn't given a mark for this, and he wasn't given a mark for this, and he got a 0 out of 2. And then you had conventional options. So conventional does not mean old fashioned. And options does mean in a way varieties, but not when you look at the text. So again, what is the problem that you guys are doing? Because we are trying to discuss a few problems that you guys might be coming across, is that you are completely ignoring what the text is saying. And you need to stop doing that. This is context based meanings. So if you're not looking at the context, because they're specifically saying, using your own words, explain what the text means by that. Not explain what ABC means by that, or explain what Ali means by this, or explain what Abdullah means by this, or what Shanze means by this, or what Ahmed means by this. No, they're saying explain what the text means by this, which means you are bound by the confinements of the text, right? So you have to take a look at that. I'm going to show you another sample. Let's open this one because we opened the other one right now. Did this child end up getting a mark? All right. So this child ended up getting a mark, sample for test. This is what this child wrote down. And he got a mark for this, but he did not get a mark for cuisines. Why? Because delicacies are not cuisine, something that I was saying a while ago. Delicacies are unique food items. Take a look at part B. Conventional are traditional, not old-fashioned, by the way, which the old kid wrote down. And options are choices. So this was a 2 out of 2, but this one was a 1 out of 2. If you want, I can show you another paper. Let's take a look at what this child did. By the way, this is a 43 out of 80, and this was an A in paper 1. So let's see what this child did. He wrote down insights into what the locals love to eat. I mean, come on. Insights into, he's just going a bit off track. And this is something that happens to most of you, is that you end up going off track. And so he got a 0 out of 2, which you can take a look here. Here, 1B1, 0 out of 2. No marks for this. And then let's take a look at the next one, conventional options. So conventional was ordinary, but options are not methods. No, options are varieties. No, choices. Most importantly, choices. So 1 out of 2 for ordinary, but no mark for methods. And so you can take a look here that this child ends up getting a 1 out of 2. So even though this child has an A in paper 1, he may have messed up a few things. Now, I want to show you guys something. I got most or maximum requests for summaries. I got so many messages on Instagram asking me to show, ma'am, do you have a sample for summary writing which we can see? Absolutely, yes. We have 5 examiner scripts that I have separated for you guys. Let's take a look at this. No, let's start with this one. All right, so this child, how many marks does he have for a summary? Before I show you the marks, why don't we take a look at the summary first? So let's take a look at the summary. Now, I'm starting to like this summary because, by the way, A1 is a reading one. And A1 actually means your assessment objective 1, which, by the way, means reading and understanding, which means that the child has thoroughly read out the task and has understood everything and has figured out the content points. And this looks like a pretty good summary to me. And you can take a look at the examiner's comment here as well. I'm just going to zoom in so you can have a look. According to examiner, before we even read the summary, examiner thinks that the child has a competent understanding of task, which, by the way, is the highest level of mark that we get for reading. Good range of ideas, not excellent range of ideas. So this is slightly lower at this point. Mostly focused. L4, what is the highest level? L5. So possibly competent understanding was competent. Understanding was competent means highest level of understanding. But he could have had better ideas, which means that the content, in simple words, it means that content point selection could have been better. L3 is not that good, which means that the writing part, writing means simple language, fluency, better grammar, that could have been better. Let's take a look at this. I'm sure that most of you have solved this paper because this is from last year. But let's take a look at this. According to text B, how and why are buses being used? We discussed it the other day, and if you have seen my summary writing video that I've made, I've mentioned how some questions have 2 branches, and this one also has 2 branches. Let's take a look at what this child wrote down. With the notion of using buses past their former glamour, what the child has done, because I'm supposed to tell you what we need to fix here as well. With the notion of using buses past their former glamour, it's extra. And I've told you before that we don't need any intro. So I'm going to write it here. Don't require any intro or conclusion. So ignore this. You can simply jump into saying the child, the candidate, could have simply started with this. Capital O, ignore everything till here. Old buses are being used to promote eco-friendly initiatives. This is one point. With volunteers going about the city assisting the needy with food. 2. Clothing and social interaction. 3. Furthermore, and he has used a semicolon here, and we don't require this semicolon, by the way, because semicolon is a bigger pause, and we need a comma here. So this is definitely a writing error. So I'm going to write it like this. Those keen to minimize their carbon footprint renovate former school minibuses into fully functional and comfortable housing. 5. Alongside environmental benefits. This is a repetitive point. Old buses assist startups. 6. And entrepreneurs by advertising their products. 7. Around tours, while some may put up a shop selling their merchandise. 8. On a double-decker bus and approach customers. All right. Moreover, people who miss using the bus for daily commute can now enjoy buses that have been transformed into cafes and offices. 9 and 10. So in a way, the child has written 10 points, and that is something that we require, which is why we like this summary. So the child has gone on to talk about 10 content points, or let's say 9 to 10 if we're being generous about it. So the child does in fact have a competent understanding of task, but because of the semicolon and because of the fact that the sentences look a bit packed, and I feel like to some extent the child may have relied on the wording of the text, the candidate ended up losing a few marks in his writing aspect. So reading was pretty okay. Writing, by the way, if we talk about L4, so L5 for summary is somewhere around 9 and 10, and this should be somewhere around 7 to 8. And for L3 reading, the mark should be something like 3 out of 5. So the child, according to me, should have 10 out of 15 or 9, 10, 11, 12. No, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right. So the child, according to me, should either have 11 out of 15 or 10 out of 15. Let's take a look at what the examiner gave him a mark. 1F. So 7 and 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So like I suggested, the child has an 11 out of 15. So do you understand how we get these marks? For summaries, C means content, W means writing. So you know how content gets 10 marks and writing gets 5. Excuse the handwriting, but you understand what's going on. Summaries get marked out of 10 for content and out of 5 for writing. And that is how we get it. So this is a pretty high tier response. It is a pretty good response. So we'll give him a shining star and a smiley face because he did good. Now let's take a look at another summary to compare if that one's better or this one. 11, we just did that one. Let's choose H. This child has a 10 out of 15. Not bad at all. Let's take a look at this summary as well, and then we'll move. Oh, I like the handwriting. All right, let's take a look at this child. Let's take a look at what the examiner has to say. Partially effective, expressed clearly. So both L3s for reading is going to fall somewhere in 9, 10, 7, 8, 5, and 6. So the child either has 5 or 6 marks out of 10 for content points And for writing, the child also has L3, which means the child most definitely has 3 out of 5. So again, the child either has a 9 out of 10 or a maximum top tier 10 out of 9 out of 15 or 10 out of 15. Let's take a look at the summary and then see where we are. Since buses can't not, I think he was trying to write down cannot. The examiner may have taken a mark for this. Please remember, guys, I've been saying this so many times now. Examiners can't grade what they can't read, right? So if your writing is illegible, they're not going to mark it. It's not their job to sit and start analyzing your handwriting, because they're not going to do that. If there's something that is understandable on face value, you will get the mark. If something is not understandable on face value, they are going to ignore it. So please try and write clear. And this child has really nice handwriting, but his cursive handwriting is getting in the way of him understanding, or even the examiner understanding, everything that he's writing down. Since buses cannot be always, awkward phrasing, guys. Cannot be always does not make sense. So cannot always be, by the way, since buses are not always, would have been a better phrasing. A dull, packed, I'm assuming this is packed transport, they need to be reused. Again, up till here, there's no point. So something that I've been saying again and again, no intros, please. So this is we can simply ignore this, as did the examiner. Not only for this purpose, but to give rise to eco-friendly recycling innovation. So the child could have, or the candidate could have simply started with, to give rise to eco-friendly recycling innovations, buses are transformed beyond their capabilities. So we restructure the sentence so that the very first point of your summary is actually the very first sentence. This is something that I always tell my kids. Additionally, what better? Now, if this was a class, I would have normally asked you guys what the problem is. Why is this highlighted? By the way, what better is informal, and summaries, for all intents and purposes, are formal pieces of writing. So what better is informal, hence the child is going down or below in the marking scheme. What better use could working buses be actually put to with their limited pollution and ability to bridge gap between elderly people by setting musical gatherings? This sentence does not make sense. This might be correct, but I'm saying that it lacks a certain sense. And you know how we say in English, there's a very famous phrase that we say, make it make sense. So if it has to make sense. Furthermore, old buses can be used as mobile mini schools. This is fine. Mobile theaters is fine. Party for entertainment purposes, sure, this is fine. Moreover, they could be used for advertising products. This is okay. That need prominent noticing by painting the bus. Lastly, comma, there needs to be a comma here, to support work-friendly atmosphere. Work-friendly needs to be there needs to be a hyphen here because it's a compound word. This is what I'm looking at. It can be transformed into a ready to go. By the way, ready to go is also a compound word, so we need hyphens here. And a cafe, there needs to be no comma here to reduce the need of ensuring punctuality. So as we have witnessed, the child may have written the points. I don't doubt that one bit, even though I feel like he is lacking in the content points that he has written down, possibly 6 points or so. And even the points that he did write down lack a certain kind of grammar. By the way, this child also ended up with an A star, interestingly enough. Take a look at this. He has 54 out of 80, and I don't really remember his marks, but because I know the script and I know the child and I recognize the handwriting of the child, because I taught him last year, he ended up with an A star in English. So not bad, but the summary could have been improved. So I think we're done with 2 summaries. We're going to take a look at, we did this one. What is the paper that we haven't touched so far? This one? All right, this child also has a 49 out of 80, as you can see here. And this child, interestingly enough, also ended up with an A star, even though, take a look at the marks. 9 out of 15 for summary. 2D, you guys keep going crazy for 2D. And this child, despite having an A star, has a 6 out of 15. I will be showing you his imagery question. though he does have a 3 on 3 for question 2C, which is the language question, and question 3, which all of us keep hollering about, 25 mark question, he has a 12 out of 25. That's generally a D grade, but thresholds don't work like that. Thresholds are different. But so let's take a look at 2D, because I really want you guys to see how the infamous, imagery question looks like, and those of the kids who did end up with an A star, what on God's green earth did they write that they ended up with an A star? So let's take a look at 2D. I will show you 2C as well. Remember how we discussed the attitude of the orange juice, by the way? Again, interestingly enough, the paper that I did the other day in most of my videos was actually May, June 25, the same paper that I have open in front of you right now. So you can take a look at how this child has commented on language. This is 2C, by the way. The word stolen suggests that the orange juice of the owner, the owner of the orange juice. Oh, the orange juice of the owner was taken. Got it. The orange juice of the owner was taken without his permission, right? Which angered him, something that I absolutely love. Why do I love this? I'm pretty sure the examiner did as well. Because the key word is attitude. Attitude is the behavior. So how was the owner of the orange juice behaving? The more the child answers behavior. The more the candidate answers the behaving part, the more chances he ends up, making for him in terms of a good grade. Angered him, this is good. It shows that the owner considered this action a serious crime. This is again something that we absolutely love, as he considered the one guilty a thief. By the way, thief is not spelled like that. However, I've told you before that because this is the reading paper, you're not going to lose a mark. Also because I understand that the child wanted to write thief, so this is fine. The word stolen has connotations of sin. Excellently put. We love when children go beyond literal explanations onto the world of connotations, and I absolutely love this. Showing the extent to which the owner was frustrated, again something that I really like, as he used a word associated with robbers. So there is a certain kind of repetition. I will, give the candidate that. The answer is slightly repetitive. However, it does talk about multiple adjectives which are angered, and he thought it was a serious crime. He thought that the person who took away the juice was guilty and that he was frustrated. So multiple different ideas showing us the behavior of the owner of the orange juice, hence his attitude, which is why the child ended up getting a 3 out of 3. Please remember that what we're doing, 2D is actually an extension of 2C. So what we're actually doing is that we are showing the examiner that we understand how language works. We understand that the word stolen has multiple layers of meaning, which this child has opened up or peeled up one by one, which is why the child has ended up with a 3 on 3. All right, let's take a look at 2D. Paragraph 5 begins with our world and describes the inside of the word bus. By the way, paragraph 5 is about description. And I hope all of you who are into writing descriptive essays know for a fact that description mostly focuses on literary devices, imagery, capturing how things around you are there, how we infamously say, painting a picture for the reader and everything. Let's see how the child has done it. In paragraph 5, the writer uses a variety of adjectives. Absolutely, yes. I think I shouldn't circle it because then the circle looks like there's a problem somewhere. We're going to use highlighter. So variety of adjectives. Anything that I highlight means that it's good. So description relies on sensory imagery, and sensory imagery relies heavily on adjectives. So good start. To describe, yes, one problem. So I'm going to use a red pen-ish thing here. Why is the examiner doing this usually? Please remember that you have the word describe here and you have the word describe here. Just by the way, avoid repeating the words that are in the question. Try not to do that. What the bus held inside of it. Firstly, the phrase, all right, back to the highlighter. Firstly, the phrase overloaded display. I hope you guys can see this real nice. All right. Firstly, the phrase overloaded display suggests. I love the word suggest because it's a very nice keyword or a command word. And for 2D, we're looking at command words such as the word suggest. You can write them down somewhere so you remember this for tomorrow, such as the word implies, such as the word infer. It can be inferred, or the writer, a reader can infer, because readers infer and writers imply. So you can, the writer has tried to imply this and the reader can infer this. So you can write it down like that and it looks absolutely amazing if done right. Back to highlighter. Firstly, the phrase overloaded display suggests that the bus was jammed with a variety of items inside. Alright, this shows that there was a lot to see inside of it. Could have been better, this one particularly. More than what a normal bus has. Too boring. The word overloaded on an adjective has connotations of packed, but didn't he say jammed somewhere? He did here. So again, what is the problem that we're witnessing? Slight repetition. And that might be a problem. Showing that the space inside was left empty. No, this could have been better. Furthermore, let's do another one. The phrase people stared in suggests that ones outside of the bus looked inside of it with care. This shows that the bus's interior wasn't usual at all, since the curiosity of people forced them to give a look inside. This is good. I'll be honest. This is good. The word stared has connotations of weirdness. We could have used the word gazing here, like their sense of sight is stuck in a way that the unique, showing that the unique bus couldn't be overlooked. This is good. Do you know why the writer may have put this here? Because the word be actually looks like a he here. I'm going to erase this so you can have a look. Can you take a look here? It looks like an H. This is what the child wrote. I know that he meant be, but I'm not going to assume, because as an examiner, it's not my job to assume and give you a mark. I won't be assuming and giving you marks. I will be taking a look at things, taking them at face value, and then giving you a mark. So if it doesn't really fulfill the criteria on face value, sadly, I'm not going to give you a mark. So that is a problem here. I'm not going to read everything else because we can't read the entire thing. This child has how many marks? I think he had a 6 out of 15 6 out of 15, which isn't a very good score. I want to show you a nice score, and this child had, all right, 6. This one had, let's see how many marks this child had. 2D, a 9 out of 15, still better than 6. Let's see if we have any other mark. 2D, 10 out of 15. Now we're getting somewhere. So F is getting a 10 out of 15, 2D, 7. We're not looking at that. 6 out of 15, and 9 out of 15. Let's go with the one who got 10 marks. I think it was this one. All right. 10 out of 15, here we go. Let's take a look at this child's 2D. The overall theme of paragraph 5 is the pathetic yet homely feel the bus embodied. Do you see the contrast that this child has made? Pathetic yet homely, what do we call this? In the terms of literature, we call this juxtaposition. Or you also call this a contradiction. What is a juxtaposition? A juxtaposition or a contradiction is when you put two opposing ideas side by side to capture any kind of an image or a situation. And he says it was pathetic and yet it was homely, which is a very big contrast. They're just opposed with each other. But let's take a look at what the child has written. Highlighters on. Let's change the color. In paragraph 5, the writer uses the phrase, our world was inside the double-decker bus. Now, I would want this child to talk about how it encompassed everything that mattered to them. in which the writer ingeniously displays the attached sentiments, lovely start, of the people who lived in the bus. The word world clearly shows that to them the bus was nothing ordinary, but rather a symbol of adventure and perseverance, maybe a symbol of belonging as well. The child could have said that somewhere, he didn't. For its inhabitants, and most importantly, a home, it's effectively instilled in the minds of, oh god, this, for some reason this is supposed to be an off, but it looks like mindy. By the way, it's an off. The bus has significant emotional worth. This plus here means that the child is going out of bounds and is writing too much additional content. The child could have stopped at this word here, here. Up until here, this part, for one example, according to the examiner, was more than enough. This part, everything else is a bit extra. Moreover, in paragraph 5, the writer uses the phrase people stared in, we gazed out, which expertly captures the eccentric idea. Lovely choice of words by the candidate. I know who this candidate is. He was an amazing child throughout the year as well, with which bystanders may have judged the bus and its residents while also illustrating their indifferent attitudes. So, eccentric, indifferent, expertly capturing, illustrating. Take a look at the words. Compare this to a child who may be saying, I'll show you the lowest grade as well. So you can take a look at how you are going to end up with not many marks and see, if you are making those mistakes so tomorrow you don't make them. The word stared here has negative connotations. Believe me, these are the boys that I taught last year, and I had to drill in their minds the word connotations and how there are positive connotations and negative connotations. And taking a look at these scripts now in much detail actually makes me feel good in a way, that all of that drilling that I made them go through the last 9 or 10 months that we were together actually was fruitful, because whether it worked or not, at least everybody ended up using the word connotation, and that makes me feel good in a way as a teacher. The word stared here has negative connotations of looking strangely, which further highlights the pitifully old state of the bus and the people inside gazing out. Shows that they were much more focused on the adventure and thrill. By the way, again, like I said a while ago, plus additional content. So try not to get carried away with one example, because you have to expand 6. This was a pretty good, I liked it. All right. I'm not going to read everything because, again, we have to touch a lot of things. Let me take a look at 6 marker here. 9, 7. What is the lowest score that we have? 2D. Oh, God. I want to show you this. Guys, this kid, also a student of mine, and a lovely student of mine, by the way, ended up getting, sadly, a 4 out of 5, and it makes my heart sink, but I really want to show you the problems that he may have done so that we don't do that tomorrow. Oh god, here we go. The paragraph 5, by the way, 5, and he spelled out the word 5 as well, cute, but it doesn't get you a mark. The paragraph 5 explores the atmosphere inside the bus and the way people were managing. Okay. At first, the things were tightly packed and all the things were just jumbled up, which is explained by the example overloaded. Therefore, this further personifies the fact that the people had little space available, which was difficult. EXP means explanation, which was difficult to manage, as the word overloaded shows connotating something, awkward phrasing of something being overly filled. This is a literal meaning, guys. Of the many problems that I have observed so far, we don't want literal meanings. Please don't give any literal meaning. Not only this, but the entrance, I know that there's not supposed to be an E in entrance, but we're going to ignore the spellings. And exit was also extremely difficult, and the passengers had to face issues completely irrelevant, which is explained by the example gutted. Therefore, this further elaborates the fact that the bus was not completely renovated and the main doors were sealed, as the word gutted shows connotations of devastatedness, which, by the way, is not a word. The word is devastation. So don't try and, how do you say it, come up with new words on your own, which we call coinage, by the way. So don't coin new words and don't invent new words in your CIE exams. This is also further explained by the example squeezed, which explained the fact that the space was limited. Boy, what are you doing? And the bus was also in an obsolete condition. Entrance door, all right. So you know what the child is doing. If I were to sum up what's going on in this text and like why is this such a big problem, he is summarizing. He's not analyzing. So why is the child ending up with, or has ended up with, was it 4 marks if I remember correctly? Because for the love of God, it's starting to look like a summary of the paragraph. There's no analysis. Analysis means trying to go, let's write it here, beyond the scope of the text. So beyond the scope means superficial meanings, sure, are there, literal meanings are there, but we go beyond it. What is the writer trying to say while not saying it? So indirect meanings that we have, and this is problematic. And you can see by the look on my face that I'm a bit gutted right now as well. So yeah, so this child sadly ended up getting a 4 out of 15, which is pretty bad score. And if you want to know what this child's eventual grade was, he got a B. And he was devastatedness stuff, whatever he wrote down. He was devastated. Even though for him it was a pretty good grade because he struggled a lot in the entire year. Let's take a look at 3C now. Question 3. Question 3 was a talk? No. If I remember, it was a letter. Yes, if I remember correctly. But I want to show you a high-level response first and then a low-level response first. This child has 11 out of 25. This is not a very good grade, but let's see how many marks the other candidates have. So we can take a quick look at that as well. Sir Harris? Harris? I'm sorry, I needed the charger to go on. All right, this child got how many marks? 7 and 7, 14 out of 25. Not bad when you compare it to other kids. Excuse me. All right, 14 out of 25. All right, 14 out of 25, and then this one had 11 out of 25, and this one 12 out of 25. So far, the highest grade is 14. 6 and 6, 12, and 1, 13. So far, 14 is the highest. 11, 14, 13. Oh, 16. Now we're getting somewhere. 16 out of 25. Let's take a look. All right, you are awake. You know how shortly after the trip ends, you were supposed to write down a letter, and letter. By the way, this is something that I tell my students all the time, that whenever you get a question like this, which you will be getting tomorrow, inshallah, they always tell you at three places the text type that you have to write down. So please don't mess this up. I will also take this opportunity. I don't know how many kids are online. I'm not really looking at, all of that. But for those of you who are, and if you can, try to get my message across to your friends as well, that format does not really get any mark. Now is the time where I tell you this, that format does not get a mark, which means that you could have started with Dear James, or you could have started with Dear Friend, because there are some kids that write this down as well. And there are some kids that may have simply written, Hey James. I just want to show you a few samples here. Hey James. And that would not have made a difference. And you could have written an address, which by the way nobody recommends, and you may choose not to, and you may choose to write down Dear James on the left side, or you may choose to write it down on the right side, and nobody cares. The examiners really don't care, and the word still stays the same, and nothing changes at all. So the formats don't really get a mark. Please, now is the time that you understand that. After a long time away from Coventry, I finally returned. Our circumnavigation of North America, amazing word, love this, has come to an end, and I am so pleased to be back. Do you see the capitalizations? By the way, we don't really recommend this, because the thing is, as a teacher, if I recommend something to you, chances are that you're going to go all overboard with it. And kids do. They always go overboard with stuff. So we try to, just keep things to a minimum. I embarked somewhat abruptly. Interesting, but slightly formal, I would say. This is starting to get slightly formal, and because you're writing a letter to your, it says here, letter to a friend, it is supposed to be informal. Abruptly, some 2 years and 3 months ago, and I seem to think that one single letter I wrote didn't express the details of my travels that clearly. Somewhat bored after my apprenticeship as a carpenter ended, I responded to an advert in the local newspaper. So A1 is, the annotation 1. There's some development here as well. DEV means development. A1, development. A2 has been answered. A2 is the second bullet. Why are they calling it A2? Annotate 2. Annotate 3. Outside text. Problem. Do you know what outside text means? Outside text means that the child has added an information in the text, in his response, which wasn't a part of the text. Are you allowed to do that? I had an online class before this, not the one, like individual classes with a few kids. And one of the kids asked me if we are allowed to add in anything that is not a part of question 3. And the answer is no. Strictly speaking, no. But if I am to sort of, make it easy for you guys, if there is a point in the text regarding question 3 and you figure that point out, suppose there's a point pertaining to the first bullet, or there's a point pertaining to the second bullet, or there's a point pertaining to the third bullet, you can use some information to develop that point further. So you can take it further, but you can't create a point out of thin air that does not really exist in the text. I hope I've made my point clear. So to answer your question, are you allowed to make something up that's not a part of text C? No. But can you use some tiny bits of information to develop points that are already in the text? Yes. Development we're okay with, invention we are not. So you're not going to invent anything, you're going to develop points that are already in the text. Otherwise, what's going to happen with you is what happened with this child with the outside text written. So you can't do that. Fate proved otherwise. Attractor. I feel like the child was, the child had a character in this. You know how certain people have a certain way of talking, which we call, they have this specific personality and specific character. We try not to indulge into something like that in the academic areas. Neither did we catch the old comedian at the wheel where we were doing it. What an angel. Continued an additional page 13, which he got this. And all up and repaired in a matter of hours. And then lastly, what was it? Your friend Victor. 7/3/1973, we're okay with that. Sure, this works. What did the examiner think of this child? The writing was mostly fluent and reasonable response, straightforward ideas, limited development. Do you know what this means? Let me take you here to show you what the examiner thought about this. Even though it was a pretty great response, and by the way, this child ended up getting, I think if I'm not wrong, 16 out of 25. And it was, I don't know why my fives are like that. 5. So it was an 8 out of 15 and an 8 out of 10. So 8 out of 15 for writing and 8 out of 10 for reading. This was his score, by the way. 8 out of 10 for reading, even after straightforward ideas, the candidate has ended up with an 8 out of 10. Do you know why? Because there is variety. Variety of ideas. And I won't stop there. Variety of ideas per each bullet. Something that most of you miss out on. Again, something that I was talking to a student a while ago before this class, and I was telling her that you're not going to lose marks. If at all you end up losing, you're not going to lose marks because there's something wrong with the way that you're writing. You are going to end up losing marks because you don't write enough. So if you have been watching my videos, or if you watched the paper 1 class that I had, I think on Sunday or Saturday, like a couple of days ago, I talked about this thing that was called insufficiency. Insufficiency means not enough, which means what you're writing is correct. So as much as you are writing, that is correct. But what you are writing is not enough. So you need to start writing more and more and more. So why did this child, despite having straightforward ideas and limited development, still end up with an 8 out of 10? Because number one, there was fluency in his writing. So you need to understand that. And number two, by the way, this was, I think, reading and writing. The point is, let me just erase this so we take care of the mess. The point is that there were a variety of ideas and there was sufficient expression, and writing was controlled as well. So this is something that you need to know. By the way, you, like I said, you may choose to write on your friend, you may choose to write on your name, you may choose to omit all this altogether and simply say, hope to see you soon, and that's it. And you're not going to lose a mark. So just so we get that out of the way, you're not going to lose a mark for formats. So let's take a quick look at the marks that this child had. If I am remembering correctly, yes, it was a 16 out of 25. So I wanted to discuss with you 2D, and I wanted to discuss with you question 3, and I wanted to discuss with you question 1B, and I wanted to discuss with you summary writing as well. And we have done almost everything based on that. Now I want to talk to you about something that is not related to academics, but I still wanted to talk about it. We have an English paper tomorrow, and I know that we've been making a big deal out of it, like English this and English that, and go and do 2D and solve a past paper and take a look at marked examiner scripts. And I was the person who was doing that, so I admit to it. But then that was because, I know that most of us are grade oriented, but grades are not everything. I know you have heard this so many times from so many teachers, and I want to share something with you from my own life. I was never an A starter. I was never an A grader. I was somewhere between, you can say, barely an A and mostly a B. So my parents knew that I would end up with 70%. Between 70 and 85% was the perimeter that I had set for myself. And I knew that I was a smart kid. I wasn't a hard worker. I was a smart worker, I would say. So whatever I would do, I would end up with 72% and I would be happy, and I would end up with 84% and I would be equally happy. It wouldn't make a difference to me whether I was getting a B or an A. And the reason was that I was an outdoorsy kid. And I don't know if all of you are my students here or kids from different areas, but you might be shocked to know that I'm a doctor. By education, I'm a doctor, and with those 70-ish percentages, I ended up in a med school and I graduated with a medicine degree, and then of course changed careers because I loved English, and now I've been teaching English for a very long time now. Why am I telling you all this? I did not really make studies the epicenter of my life, and I ended up with B's at certain occasions, C's as well, don't tell anyone that, in med school especially. And there were nights where we had to wake up, but I will be honest with you, I was never the kid who would pull off all-nighters, so I never did that as well. And at the end of the day, the point at my life where I am right now, I'm pretty happy, alhamdulillah, with everything and how things turned out. And would my life have been any different if I had gotten um, an A star? I don't think so. Does this grade really change who I am as a person? No. I know that I'm Yumna and I know what I'm good at and I know what I struggle with. And I know that I'm good at, for example, outdoorsy stuff, but I'm not really a bookworm. And I'm okay with that. And are all of you going to end up with A stars as well? No. And that's a fact. And that's okay. You need to understand that there are a lot of us who are not going to end up with A stars all our life. And that's okay, you know. And if I am to lighten the note a bit, it's a very cliche thing to be saying this in an online class that's meant to be about academics, but the C graders eventually end up having A graders work for them. So I'll let you in on a little secret. All of the big company, megas and everything, they were usually either college dropouts or C graders. I'm not saying you should drop out of school. I'm not saying you should end up with a C grade. I'm just saying that that's usually what people say. So do good in English, because as an English teacher, I would want that. But even if you don't, that's pretty okay, I would say. So if there's still any question that you have at the back of your head, something that's still pestering you, even though I would tell you to relax at this point, no more past paper, no more solving. It's 9 o'clock already. Go have dinner and then sleep. And then wake up to ensure that because the paper is in the morning, we end up getting a good night's sleep. So that is important. So that's about it. It was lovely to have this with you. And be in touch, because we'll be having, I think, 1 or 2 classes for paper 2 as well, where we will be talking about analysis, evaluation, and development. So hopefully we can try and end up with a good grade. Thank you, and I'll see you guys some other day.